Hey everybody, today I'm talking about Gentes. Now Gentes is a 2017 release. It plays 1 to 4 players, takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours to play. It's a Euro style game where the main mechanisms are kind of card drafting and also kind of civilization building, as you are basically trying to increase your population in order to play different buildings or monuments, all in order to get bonuses and ultimately score victory points. The winner of the game will be the player with the most victory points. The game uses this very clever kind of action selection mechanism where you are choosing an action, picking up a tile on the main board and putting it on your own individual player board. But that's not only important for reasons relating to its cost, because everything kind of costs money, or it will cost time. And that's the kind of main thing about this game that differentiates it from anything else, is this time mechanism. Because every action you take takes up time, and to indicate that, you collect these different hourglass tokens and put them on your board, which kind of eats up spaces or actions that you can take that turn. So some actions, for example, might be very cheap to buy, but it will take up a lot of time, therefore eating up your actions, or some might be more expensive, but only take up a shorter amount of time. And that's a really cool mechanism, and I'll go into more detail of that a bit later. So yeah, ultimately what you're trying to do is you are as I said, using these actions to take cards into your hand and trying to manipulate your population, because you've got 6 different types of workers. You've got your merchants and your preachers and your all these different kind of craftsmen and artisans and stuff like that, represented by these different icons. And your kind of population is clearly illustrated on your player board, and you are basically trying to move them up in order to fit the criteria of these cards so that you can take another action in order to build them. And obviously when you build them, you get victory points, not only based on what the cards say, but you also get these kind of synergizing bonuses as well, because if you build buildings of a certain type, you get cumulative points that way. Not only are you trying to do it for the victory points, but you're also trying to do it based on the bonuses they give you, because some cards might say, maybe take another population up, or you get a new worker placement spot that you can use that nobody else can, or some might let you take padlocks off your main board, which gives you more actions you can take on your turn. That's another really cool mechanism. You can get some nice cool little synergies and a bit of engine building going as well, because again, some of these cards give you like lasting benefits or kind of ongoing little little benefits that nobody else can get. So yeah, the game is boiled down into a very few different actions you can take, but as I said, you're trying to manage not only what actions you're taking, but how much time they're taking as well. So you've got the zone that lets you place buildings. So one of the buildings, or the benefits of the buildings, are that when you place you've got 6 buildings, you're placing on these different locations on the map, and they'll give you bonuses such as money, or they'll give you these cubes that they can let you manipulate your population. And they can also give you other things as well, like such as victory points. But the cool thing is there's 3 different zones, and when you go to these zones, not only do you trigger the building that you've just built, you trigger every other building in that region as well. So you can get a good amount of powerful benefits if you really focus on one area. But likewise, or kind of in contradiction to that, if you build in one of the different or all the different regions, at the end of each kind of round of the game, you get to trigger a building from each of those regions. So you can focus on two different things really. You can either really focus heavily on the building in the same region in order to get more kind of to amplify your bonuses time and time again, or you can kind of go spread yourself out and then get one of each bonus at the end of each round. So again, 2 different contrasting mechanisms there, which is quite nice. You've also got the ability, or the action space that you can use that lets you manipulate your population. And this is a really cool mechanism where you have this kind of sliding track, or where if you spend, or pick up a certain token that costs money, it lets you choose, or it depends how much you spend, depends on how or which workers you can take onto your board. And this is something that's a bit different to get your head around, but it's actually quite simple in practice, because depending on how much you spend, it depends on what you can do. So basically the ones further to the end of the track will cost more money. But again, if you take it, that will kind of, you'll go up on that population on your worker board, which obviously could be important for you. But if you take ones that are closer towards the cheaper end, then you can potentially get a couple for the same amount of money. So yeah, it's this kind of weird mechanism where if you spend a certain amount of money, you can take any kind of the whole row, or you could take a couple from the lower places of the same row. Again, that might not make much sense, but it's actually quite simple. So yeah, there's this nice little flow of population as the prices of the different the different skills fluctuate, and obviously you're trying to manipulate those in order to fulfill your cards, because another area on the board, it works in the exact same mechanism, but in terms of drafting cards into your hand in order so you can build them. Another mechanism that you can do is take the first player marker or take money, and also the kind of final action space you can take is in order to build the cards in the first place. So obviously when you're drafting the cards, you take them into your hand, but when you take the separate action in order to build the cards, you obviously pay the time and the money in order to actually build that card if you have the criteria, and play it in your pile of completed buildings, which again give you bonuses and stuff like that. So yeah, the game has a pretty simple flow to it. All you're doing is you're taking your actions, you're choosing which, what you're going to pay in terms of money and time. Obviously, these actions are pretty, they're pretty thin on the ground, because there's, depending on the player count, it depends on what tiles are available. So there's not always going to be the options you want to do, because you might want to do a couple of actions, or you might only have a certain amount of money, but people might take the cheap options, meaning that you're going to have to go for the more expensive options, or really manage about when you're going to spend time and when you're going to spend money. You can also do this really cool thing in terms of the time, where so some things cost 2 or 3 time to build, which obviously is going to eat a lot of time or a lot of actions you can take on your turn. But you can choose to double the time up on a certain action space, which obviously means you're only taking one of those actions up, but it means that next round, one of those hourglasses is going to stay on your board for the following turn. So you can kind of sacrifice next turn in order to benefit more this turn, which can be a meaningful decision to make, because you might want to really force a card to be built, because it might have benefits that go on at the end of the round. So yeah, there's a lot to think about that way. The kind of flow of the money is important, because money is so important in this game, because in order to do the actions that you want, they cost money. Otherwise you're going to be losing a lot of actions to time. So yeah, you want to have a constant flow of income by going on these different building spots in order to get the cards that get you money. But also there's kind of public objectives as well that people are racing for, because there's basically 3 criteria. So the first person to build 8 cards or 8 different buildings gets 8 points, whereas anybody else would only get 4 points if you complete that objective. To put your 6 individual buildings down on the map, you'd get 8 points or 4 points for coming second, if you do it at all, that is. And also the third one is, trying to think what it is, I can't even remember what it is. Oh, that's right, it's to get 18 population on your player board. And the cool thing about the population as well is that 18 is the maximum you can get, because these 2 different populations, or the 6 different workers that you can get, they kind of on the same, or 2 of them are on the same track. So when they go, when you're increasing them, they kind of go into each other, and if you ever increase it from there, then they kind of knock each other back and forth. So you've got to really manage about, or really tinker, how are you going to play your population, because some cards are going to force you to lose population and stuff, and so doing things in order can be quite important. So as you can probably tell from my explanation here, there's quite a lot going on. So the decision-wise, there is a lot to think about. Not only the races to get these objectives, to get the points, but which ones you're going to take first. Has your opponent got the money to do the expensive actions, or are they going to focus on the time? So yeah, that kind of real tension to get to the tiles you want is so important. How are you going to use your few actions? Are you going to put your buildings down in order to get ongoing benefits, or are you going to sacrifice that? Are you going to take the population you need while it's cheap? Or are you going to take one of the cheaper buildings and stuff like that? So there's so much to think about, and I really do love that. At the end of the round is also important, because you get punished if you take more cards that you can build. So you've got a hand limit of 3 cards that you can carry from round to round, and if you go any more than that, you're going to suffer more time loss. And again, it's just, yeah, just lots and lots to think about. So if you like your Euro games, this does have a lot of things to, you know, sink your teeth into, different strategies you can try, and stuff like that. So yeah, in terms of its meaningful decisions, it's everything you'd want from a Euro game. There is just a nice platter of strategies and choices to make. The player balance as well, I'm really happy with. The buildings seem very well balanced in terms of what they cost in relation to the rewards you get in return. It has a really nice cadence to the game because the game is divided into 3 ages, and basically there's 2 rounds per age, and the cards scale accordingly. So when it gets into the second age, the buildings that come out are a lot more powerful than the ones prior, and so on. But obviously you're going to need more population in order to do so, and some of them might even require you to get into certain cities or types of cities in order to build them in the first place. So again, more synergy between the mechanisms there, which is really, really nice. Mechanisms wise, I absolutely love this time track mechanism. You know, how you're going to spend your actions, the management of money and time. You know, I don't mean to keep going on about that, but that really is what differentiates this from a lot of other Euro games, is that use of the hourglasses. So yeah, I do really, really like that. The game takes about an hour and a half to maybe 2 hours to play, which I think is fine for this. I mean, it doesn't outstay its welcome at all. You're constantly engaged, and because the decisions themselves are quite quick and simple, you don't really find yourself getting distracted or losing engagement with the game. Because as I said, the rules themselves are very streamlined. Just take a tile, take the time and do the action. And these actions are pretty snappy, and you can pretty much plan what you're going to do on other players' turns. Obviously that can be subject to change if they take the kind of cards you want and stuff like that. But then again, the game is boiled down into very, very few actions itself. You know, as I said, you know, build a building, take a population, build a card, or draft a card. That's essentially it, really. And the other ones are kind of, you know, tacked on things such as take money or take the first player marker. So yeah, in terms of its streamlinedness, absolutely brilliant. And replayability as well is pretty good. I mean, in terms of, you know, you're going to get different buildings that come up or get snapped up by other players, so you're going to have different options. Obviously, sometimes things are going to be more expensive than others, so you can't afford certain stuff. It means you're going to have to force to do different things. The race to get the different objectives is good. So if someone's running away with something, you can focus on something else. So yeah, in terms of replayability, I'm absolutely more than satisfied with it. And in terms of the player interaction as well, is really good because, as I said, not only is that racing for the objectives important, the scarcity of the actions is so riveting. I mean, you know, players will just take the actions that you want, and you know, you'll have to completely re-strategize on that, meaning that the first player marker is so important, and just the way you do things and the order you do things is great. I hate kind of, well, I say hate, one of the things that put me off things is when games are so open and loose that you can pretty much do everything you want and it doesn't matter what the other players do. Whereas this one, it really does, because they could be snapping up cards that you want, they could be taking population that you want, meaning that when you take it, it's going to be a lot more expensive. So yeah, prioritizing things is very, very important. The look of the game is fantastic. I have the deluxe edition and I can't really testify or can't really advocate the not deluxe edition because I haven't seen it myself, but the TMG version is absolutely gorgeous to look at. The production value is second to none. Beautiful wooden pieces throughout, great quality cards. The board looks lovely, nice and clean iconography. Honestly, the game has metal coins which are absolutely beautiful, very tactile game, and I just love the way it looks. It has a very different aesthetic appeal to most other Euro games. It has this almost like caveman style drawing, and I just really like it, and it just works extremely well. And the theme-wise as well is absolutely fine. I mean, the way that the different buildings synergize with each other, you know, it's nothing to write home about, but it's nice and simple in terms of what population it needs, and the benefits they give and stuff like that. So the theme works well, but again, it's not an overly thematic game. But yeah, overall, I think this game is fantastic. I absolutely loved it. It's not a game that I've had on my radar for a long time, but I've heard some good things about it, and I saw someone sell it and for a good price, and I picked it up on a punt, and I'm so glad I did, because I absolutely adore it. The the action kind of selection mechanism works so well. I love that tension of the time. You know, are you going to invest in getting rid of those padlocks so you can take more actions? You know, what are you going to focus on? Are you going to get your buildings down? Are you going to, you know, focus on getting your population up? Or it's just so much different things to think about. It's very streamlined, quite an elegant game, and it's just real fun. I'd be extremely surprised if this doesn't make my top 10, at least new to me games of the year. And I can see this doing quite well on my best games of all time, because it's just an absolute joy to play, and it's rock solid mechanically, and just great fun. So that's Gentes. If you like your Euros or your midweight Euros, this is definitely one to check out. Doesn't get too much praise or too much attention, but I think it should, because it is that good. So it gets an amazing verdict from me. This is going to be, you know, top tier for me. And again, look forward to getting it to the table again and again and again. That's Gentes. Definitely one to check out if you like your Euros. So if you have enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos too. For everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.